Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Ready, Aim, Retire. I'm Rob Kirvan. It is a show where we talk all about retirement, building your legacy through expert wealth management. Today, as usual, I'm here with Tony Shore. Tony, how are we doing there today?
Rob, I couldn't be better. I'm
Oh,
so
you look
excited to
good.
be on the show with you
You look
today.
good. Like,
Yeah,
it seems like you guys have the lighting fixed. It
I'm
seems like it's
living
all coming
large.
together.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a little better today, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think you look great.
And you got the bull and bear right behind you
I
there,
do.
right above your head. Those pictures are amazing that you had done for your new office.
They are really nice. And we have a strict rule here, Tony. You can see, like, obviously I'm in the studio, but you can see it's all glass and it goes to here. So everyone in the office knows, like, once it gets to 10 to 10, they're not allowed to walk the hallways. So we don't get
Right,
any distractions, me and you. So we're focused
right.
the entire time. No distractions, nobody peeking in, nothing like that. So
Yeah, and in my studio here, I'm actually in the official studio today, and we've got a recording light out there, Rob, that people don't. There are no distractions. If they see that recording light, they're not stopping and staring through the window or knocking or
that's nice.
talking out in the hall. They just stay away, which is nice. At home, unfortunately, once in a while, our viewers might see a dog tail moving by, the tail of our large
Right.
dog, or somebody, my wife or one of the daughters, peeking around the corner. That's the problem with a home studio,
That
Rob.
is, that
Yeah.
is, like, you get everybody on the same page, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you got a hot topic, I'm going to say
We
today,
do.
right?
We do. You know what? We're gonna talk, so I get a lot of questions on this, and we're gonna talk about the crypto craze, I call it, or cryptocurrencies. And what we're gonna do today, Tony, is we're just gonna tell everyone what it is. Because the biggest question I get is, well, what is it? What does it do? What's that all about? And just as a disclaimer to everybody listening out there, I'm not we're gonna explain what it is. I'm not sitting here saying go get it, or I'm not sitting here saying don't go get it. It's more, we just want to tell you what it's all about, and then you make a decision based on your current risk, where you're at financially. And it's just another one of those topics, Tony, I think we have to cover. As a financial advisor and a fiduciary, I think the more information people have on things, the better decisions they make. So we're just going to cover it today and just go over kind of the highlights, because there's some of this, I can tell you folks, that you don't know exists. What people generally, when you think of cryptocurrency, you think of Bitcoin. That's like,
Right.
it's all Bitcoin. And everyone talks about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the OG, so everyone talks about it. But there's a lot of layers to it. So we'll talk about Bitcoin for sure. But we'll talk about some of the other layers that go along with it, and then hopefully provide you guys out there with some good information to at least know what it is, to at least be able to, have a conversation about it. I'm not saying necessarily go and get it. I'm just saying, like, at least know what it is and what it's supposed to do.
Well, I think this is going to be helpful. And Rob, I bet that you have a lot of people when they come to you ask you about cryptocurrency. I bet
For
you've
sure.
had clients say, "Hey, what about this cryptocurrency? Should my buddy, I heard my brother-in-law said a friend of his, right? It's
Uh-huh.
usually my coworker's friend's cousin made, $1 million in cryptocurrency." You hear these stories, so they come to you
Always.
and say, "Should I be doing something?"
And
Right?
you're right. That's a great point. And I get that all the time. I got it more like if you went back maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago,
Sure,
where
4
it was
years ago, probably.
really it was
Yeah.
really buzzing. But what happened 4 or 5 years ago is it went way up, and then it went way back down to where it started.
Right,
So I think there was a
right.
whole host of people in that bucket of stuff when it went down that they're not asking about crypto anymore.
No.
They're off the crypto train. So I definitely got more questions about it back then. But I also think that people, even if they didn't invest in it, they watched it because it was on all of a sudden it shows up on the CNBC ticker. It was never on there before, but now it's on there, and it's on there to this day, where people, but they watched it go to 70,000 a coin all the way back down to, I think, 13 or 15,000. So there was a lot of carnage. It is a volatile asset class, and but we'll talk about, like, kind of what it's supposed to do, and kind of how it came to be. So I would say when people say what is it, Rob, there's three things that it is. It's decentralization, which means cryptocurrencies operate on decentralized networks. So they're not using US dollars, they're not using euros, they're not using anything. It's their own finite network. and they use it using what's called a blockchain technology. And what it does is it provides security to provide secure transactions. And there's a big fear out there, Tony, with a lot of people that, a lot of the bad guys use Bitcoin, and they use these secure transactions because you can't track them.
You can
Once they're
launder
gone,
money. It's a way to launder money.
it is, and I'm sure a lot of them use it. So they're,
Yeah, that's
so
not good.
that's a big, and that's been a big headwind as far as, when you think of, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now the SEC has approved ETFs that these things are in right now, that people can go out and purchase if they, if they think it fits their situation. And it took years to do that. Years of companies saying we want to get this on there, but because of that aspect of it, they were pretty, apprehensive to do something with it, right? So you have the decentralization, you have the security, which is big, but the bigger thing of all this is the blockchain that's behind this. And folks, you're not going to realize how much this is currently used. So I'm going to give you 4 or 5 examples where blockchain is being used every single day, and it's helping you, the consumers out there. So I would say the first one is supply chain management. So now they're able to use this blockchain that tracks the orders, that tracks the journey of the products, and it helps reduce the fraud that's involved in that kind of stuff. And we've seen it, Tony, in the where were they recently with the pirates knocking, taking boats out? Was that like the Indian
Oh,
Ocean, or
yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
recently doing that, and even stuff coming from, overseas. That happens all the time. The container falls off the truck, it goes to the yard, it disappears. Well, with blockchain, they can track it on each step of the way. So it provides a little bit more security, in the journey of those products that we use every day and we purchase every single day. Um, Another one it's used currently and frequently is healthcare. So healthcare, now they can securely store patient records, ensuring the privacy, and the accessibility. But the bigger thing is it facilitates the sharing of this information through other healthcare providers. So let's say I go to my doctor and he needs to send me to a specialist. Well, using this technology, they can send all my records right over to the new specialist, and they would have access to those records. So that's a pretty big thing. Like if you remember, you used to go to the doctor's office and there used to be file cabinet after file cabinet after file cabinet.
Yep.
Those don't exist anymore. It's all, here we use My Chart. I don't know what you guys use up there, but it's My Chart. So before your doctor's appointment, you get a link, you go into My Chart, and then afterwards it goes onto My Chart and it shows all the stuff,
Yep. Same.
whatever happened. Yeah.
Yep.
So all of that stuff it's utilizing this technology, which is a good thing. These are the good things of, the cryptocurrency or the blockchain that happens. Financial
Yeah,
services.
the technology behind it is
Yes.
being used in other areas. It's not
Many
like
other areas.
yeah.
And even it started before the craze.
Right,
Blockchain
right.
started way before the craze. We just, people, as individuals, we like the newest, shiniest object to go chase, and that's kind of where everything kind of snowballed out of there. But the next one is financial services, used for cross-border transactions. So companies will use crypto for cross-border transactions to take away the currency risk. So if I'm a company purchasing raw materials from India, and there's obviously an exchange in dollars, we can use Bitcoin to lock in what we're buying it for today in our dollars, and whatever happens in their dollars doesn't affect us, because we're buying it with 10 Bitcoin or whatever we're happen to do it. So that reduces then the transaction times and obviously the costs. So that's another real good one. So there's so many ways that it's being used. Oh, and the last one, the food safety. So, like, think back, Tony, when and it still happens, but not near as frequently. When they would get a listeria breakout, they would get this breakout, and they got to recall all of this stuff. Well, blockchain can help them track. They can track a head of lettuce that is taken out of the ground in California from there all the way until it goes into your shopping cart, all the way along the way. So if there's a problem with that batch, they can say, wait a second, it went to all of these places all over the country, and they can pull it back and say, no, there's a problem with this. and they're able to do it like this. So people aren't getting sick. They're able to kind of, nip it in the bud beforehand before it becomes a huge health situation. So it's truly, you hear the word, the farm to table. It's truly the farm to table,
Yeah.
and they're able to track it. So,
Yeah.
there's definitely, I would say a lot of good uses, for cryptocurrency. But there's the caveats of the bad ones, and that's kind of what people have to struggle with to say when they're an investor, what do I want to, what am I investing in? Am I investing in something on the blockchain side? Am I investing in something on the coin side? There's hundreds of these coins. And people generally tend to like buy one that, is very cheap that they feel can just explode up. It's almost like gambling, I think, right now. I really do. Like, I think like when you're buying, a Bitcoin or Ethereum or all these other different coins, you have to understand that, you are in a high risk situation,
Very high risk. Yes.
very high risk. Even though the SEC approved the Bitcoin and the Ethereum and ETF portfolios, which is great. That's a huge step for those guys. They battled for years.
Hmm.
The Ethereum one, I don't know if they've I know it's been approved. I don't know if they've launched the Ethereum ETFs yet as we sit here, but over the next 60 days that will be happening. The Bitcoin ETFs came out in January, and they've been well received. They've actually definitely been well received. People do want to invest in things like that for, depending on kind of where they're at. But when we talk about the two, I'm not going to, there's hundreds of coins, Tony. So I'm not going to talk about this. This talk is meant to just inform. So we're not going to get into all those, but we will talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum because those are the ones that everybody kind of knows, Bitcoin especially. And your number two, if you read anything on it, is Ethereum, right?
Yeah. Those are the biggies.
They are the biggest. So let's understand what each one of them is. So Bitcoin, like I said in the beginning, it's the OG. It's the one everybody recognizes. It's what everyone talks about. It's like
Sure.
Coca-Cola. There's many colas, but when you say Coca-Cola, you're talking about the group. So Bitcoin's the big one. The theory behind Bitcoin, and here's where the risk comes in, folks. The theory is the value will go up since there's only so many coins in the world. So that's the whole premise of Bitcoin. They can only mine so many. And once they get to this finite number, I believe it's 21 million coins that are going to be available, then that's the whole supply. And it becomes a supply and demand issue where that just naturally pushes the price up. That's the theory. If they get to 21 million in one coin, that's probably, that theory goes, down in a hurry. But I'll quote Warren Buffett.
Yeah, we'll see.
So Warren Buffett says, and he's been asked about Bitcoin over and over again, and I consider him obviously one of the best investors that of our time.
Yeah, he's the
for sure.
foremost investor of our time.
I would say, yeah, for sure. And he always says that there's not a lot of value in it if you need someone to buy it for the value to go up. So when we invest and we buy companies have value because they have merchandise, or they have, they might have services that are useful, and with Bitcoin, you literally need someone to buy it for the price to go up. That's the only way. It doesn't go up on earnings. It doesn't go up on free cash flow. It doesn't go up on any of the parameters that we would normally analyze. It just goes up purely on Tony buys a coin, the price goes up. I buy a coin, it goes up. Tony sells his, it goes down. Like, so
it's not like there's a product or goods behind it, like a company or earnings reports. And, it's not like the orange trade, or, it's not like commodities where there's an actual commodity. It's more like a collectible, because I collect record albums, vinyl record albums.
Yeah.
And so a good comparison would be that, because really what's driven up the price of certain collectibles like comic books, baseball cards, and record albums is the limited quantities that were made.
Right.
And the OG aspect of it. So to get an original press of the first pressing of a big record that came out in the 60s, let's say, like Pet Sounds Mono by the Beach Boys, or the original Sgt. Pepper's release from the UK. Those albums are valuable because of people purchasing. They're only valuable if people buy them and trade them. right?
Right.
And so
And it's
that's the
only as
same with
valuable as
Bitcoin.
what someone's willing to spend for it, right?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's whatever the market will bear at the time, and that's collectibles of any kind. And
Right.
so really Bitcoin is kind of like a collectible in that way.
In that way, it totally is, right? Because you're really you're purchasing it in hopes that a lot more people purchase it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's your whole that's the whole theory behind
Yeah,
it,
there has to be demand, and if there's demand for it, then you're gonna do well because the price will go up. It's the
right,
same with a record I buy. If I wanna resell it for more, I've gotta hope the demand goes up, and there's
right.
a lot of
For that
people out there
particular
that want.
artist, for that genre, for that particular album cover.
Yep.
Exactly, like all that stuff. So that's a great comparison, and it is kinda like that, so, um, and it creates an issue, so since it doesn't have any tangible real value, at least the record, Tony, you got the record in your hand.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
have tangible value. With the
Yeah,
Bitcoin, you don't have a Bitcoin and you don't
that's
open your
true.
drawer and there's not a Bitcoin in there. Even like gold, people, do a comparison to gold and Bitcoin. Well, gold, I can buy the bar if I want to. So I
Yeah,
have the physical, yeah, I got, what that is. This one, it's on the computer, so
yeah.
it is one of those ones where it's definitely hard to wrap your head around, and it's definitely hard to kind of go, you know, if I'm an investor, is this something that I want to dip my toe in the water in? And like I said, a few years ago, people were all over it, but then they saw what can happen on the other side when you have to sell it on the cheap. So that's Bitcoin. That's the first one. Now let's talk about Ethereum for a second. So Ethereum, it's an open source blockchain based platform that enables developers to build and deploy these smart contracts we were just talking about, being able to track, putting the contracts together to track the shipment of, say, lettuce from California to our table. So they have a useful um, they have a more useful situation than a Bitcoin does, where Bitcoin is just it is what it is.
It's
But
just ones and zeros, and it's not actually providing any service.
right, where the Ethereum is, like there's developers that write these small smart contracts that track the
I didn't
shipping.
realize that
Yeah,
Ethereum did that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So and people don't. They look at it as a coin. So it actually has it's totally different than Bitcoin, and it uses all these developers use it to write these contracts from shipping from like China to here to the UK, wherever products are going, and then from the ground, which is even more important because that's the food that we're eating, to be able to, if something goes wrong with that food somewhere, to be able to pull it all back, which is a big thing. Not with just food, but with it's used in um, the cattle industry, the pork industry, like all chicken
Yeah.
industry, like the things we eat. Like it's
A
used in
lot of
all.
commodities use it and healthcare, as you
Right.
mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The healthcare is another big one. So I would say unlike Bitcoin, um, which is just the currency, I would sum up saying Ethereum actually, because it supports the blockchain and provides a service, there might be more value there. Like there may be, there may not be. I like again, um, it's such in its infancy right now, Tony, that we don't really know. Like we really don't. I know I think Bitcoin's been around since 2009. But it's done this, there's a famous story of somebody buying a pizza with 10,000 Bitcoins back then. Um, and traded with, paid with Bitcoin, and the guy sold him a pizza, and that 10,000 Bitcoins worth a gazillion dollars now. And they interview the guy from time to time when the Bitcoin craze is going, but
Right.
just trying to get him on TV so he cries. I'm not sure the purpose of that.
Yeah, just to humiliate the
Make him
person.
feel bad and make his family feel bad. Like, yeah, but it 100% did happen. So when we look at this, the question I always get from clients is, should I buy it? Right? Should I buy it? What's it all about? Should I buy it? I like to explain this. Um, and I would say if you're looking at Bitcoin or Ethereum, the 1,000 other coins, Tony. Again, I'm not going to say do it or don't do it. You got to do it based on your own risk. And we're definitely not promoting it one way or the other. But I would say, if I was an investor, I would probably only look at the top two coins, because the top two are volatile, Bitcoin and Ethereum. The other ones, they're off the charts. Like they are next level
Right.
volatile, right?
Right.
So you could have $1,000 today and you could have $0 tomorrow, but you have to look at the risks involved. So if I was going to buy Bitcoin, and folks, you can Google this on the internet and you can get all of the answers, but you will find people that have it going to $0, and you'll have people that it's going to be worth $1 million, and currently, as we do this, it sits maybe around $68,000, for one coin, and you buy fractions of it or whatever, right? But you have to look at that and go, okay, a lot of smart people have it going to 0. A lot of smart people have it going to $1 million. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Who knows? And they don't know. It's like a stock analyst, Tony. Like a stock analyst will, if Apple goes up in price, and let's say Apple's worth, just for an easy number, $100, and their target was 80. Oh, they'll we're upgrading Apple because, well, it's way over what their first thing was. So now they're
right
upgraded to 110 or 120. So they don't even know. Like they don't know.
They're constantly wrong. And I'm not going to name names, Jim Cramer, but there are guys out there who
right. They're just their
track record is
and an analyst job is it's a forecast. It's an educated guess for sure, but you don't know anything can happen. So when you have those guys that their entire job is looking at companies with tangible assets, with tangible earnings, and they're wrong, a lot, they're right a lot, but they're wrong a lot. Think of an analyst trying to analyze Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Yeah, it's crazy now.
It's impossible.
It's the Wild West.
It's the total Wild West. And even though Ethereum has more real life applications, I would encourage anybody listening, do your research, look into them. And it's like anything, just do, if you had interest in it, or like Tony said in the beginning, your friend's uncle's brother, sister told you it was a good buy. Well, do your own research. Don't just go by, marry 5 things down the blockchain down, move it to your own, do your own, ask the questions, and there's lots of information on it out there. If I had to put it in a risk category, Tony, I would say this is aggressive growth. I would even say it's speculative growth. Folks, when you're listening out there, a lot of our clients are obviously, maybe, 5-10 years from retirement or right in it, so it's probably not an asset class that we use, in our firm. But I do have clients that, they do some stuff on the side and they have interest in it. And we want to provide the information to help you make at least an informative decision or an intelligent decision based on where you're at.
You don't invest your clients' money in it, but you're saying, hey, if on your own you want to do some research, here's what I say about it. But take a small amount. You definitely don't want to take any big portion of your nest egg and gamble it away like that. You might as well go to Vegas and put it on red at that point. But if you want to try to, get your foot in that door a little bit, and you've got the money and you want to spend, say, $1,000, it depends on your situation, or a couple of grand or whatever, and you can afford to do that on your own on the side. I know people who have done that, and I'm sure you have clients that have done that just to play around with it.
Yeah, and they got, they've spoken with people. It's like, just like you said. So there's a bit of that FOMO. You don't
fear of missing out.
Yeah, the fear of missing out. There is that, especially when it's running. There's no FOMO when it goes from 70 down to 12. There's no FOMO. There's depression if you were in it. There's that, but
severe depression.
Depression, but there's no FOMO. But once it starts climbing, the FOMO kicks in. And then our phone calls will kick in. Like, people will be like, hey, what do you think of this?
But then it's typically too late.
A lot of times, history would tell you that.
It's like, every stock was down this past week except Apple went up. I want to buy more Apple. Well, no. Right. Warren Buffett would say, wait.
Yeah, you don't want to top tick anything. You don't and an individual investor, stats would show you, you can go stat to stat. They don't do very well compared to the market. Right, and the reason is for exactly what we're talking about, that they'll buy it in at the high. Let's say someone, if it goes from 68 to 70, someone has to buy. But when it goes down from 70 to 30 to 20, they're selling it. So someone bought at 70 is selling it at a dramatic loss, somewhere along the way, right?
Like in 2022 or whenever the NASDAQ tanked. People
yeah,
were getting out of the NASDAQ right and left because it was tanking. But now look at it. It set a
right.
record,
Oh,
where same with the Dow,
yeah,
it
the
set
same
record
thing. Yeah,
highs. Yeah.
like
So,
people panic sell,
yeah,
which everything we talk about it on the show. Like everything would tell you you can't do that. But
right.
Bitcoin and these coins, I think the anxiety might maybe heightens because the moves are so crazy. Like Apple could go down, 1% in a day, and it would be a tough day. That'd be all over the news. It'd be like, oh, this is the worst day since November. Bitcoin could go down 5% overnight while you're sleeping. Like
Yeah.
it literally can. It can go up 5% while you're sleeping too, but it
Yeah.
literally can go down dramatically. One it hit 70 and then all of a sudden it sold off and it was down to like 61. Like you're talking, almost 20% down
Yeah.
in weeks.
And if you
You
have
know?
any significant amount of money in it, that's real money to you and I, Rob.
Right, and then
Yeah.
you panic and you sell. Someone had to sell for it to get to 61, right? Like that
Right.
had to happen, right? So those are the points. Those are what I wanted to convey today, Tony. Is just kind of give everybody a good overview of what I think, what I think about crypto. A little background on it, though, just like there is some real life applications that are being used with it, and there's other coins that are being used in those applications. But knowing the difference, and then kind of knowing if it's something you're interested in, knowing where you're at financially, risk wise, comfortability, and then doing the research yourself to make a smart decision. But hopefully this helped at least to give you maybe a little bit better overview of kind of what it is and what's out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Rob, great topic today. The whole crypto craze, talking about it. If our listeners have questions, and I'm sure they will, how can they get a hold of you?
You can go right to our site at apadvisorsgroup.com. On there, lots of information. I don't want to do a spoiler alert, Tony, but within I think the next 3 weeks, it's all revamped. So we're in the middle of doing a
Yeah.
whole revamp. But you can go on there now. You can click a button. Obviously our contact information is on there, but you can click a button to have a free consultation. If you want to come on in or even have a phone call, do it. I can help you answer some of these questions, but more of the other, the full financial stuff. But yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks, Rob. And listeners, that's apadvisorsgroup.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening and or viewing. That
Yep.
does it for
Hopefully.
today's episode of Ready, Aim, Retire.
All right.